when it comes to choosing a car, your options are almost limitless. You have you have so many different big name competitors in the game today. Toyota, Hyundai, Chevy, Ford. You have all these huge big companies, and which one do you choose? Do you choose the one that's affordable or safer, or do you just go with whatever your family buys? That's what a lot of people do. They just stick with what their family buys. And my family bought Ford, and I might buy Ford. So I want to today cover the history of Ford and how they developed over time and what they've turned into today. So the first car that Henry Ford ever built was in 1896. It was a car with four bike wheels and no steering wheel. It had a tiller and it had two forward gears, so it couldn't go in reverse. But it wasn't his official car. It was something he worked on in his garage in Detroit in his workshop. Eh, In 1901, he raced one of the top racers of the era, Alexander Winton, and beat him. And Alexander Winton had a 70 horsepower Bullitt car. And this win like created or I it was his second, but created his company that was known as the Henry Ford Company. So Henry Ford didn't see profits until 1903, and he didn't even see, and we didn't even see the famous Ford logo, which, Ford. There's tons of iterations of it until 4 years later. So Ford's achievements in 1906, the Model T. The Model T was one of Ford's greatest inventions. It was a durable, it was affordable for the time of year, but it was simple. It it sold 15 million models before they discontinued them. 15 million models in 1908. It's argued that it's one of the most it's Ford's most famous car in the world, or it might be the most famous car in the world. But no matter what, it is the most selling car of all time. The assembly line. Ford popularized the assembly line. He showed that it could be something else. He didn't invent the assembly line though. He got the idea from meat factories. He saw that they could use production and increase it. And he realized that he could do that with just about anything, so he did it with cars. And he cut 10 hours off of the time. Ford was almost also famous for $5 day. Ford really liked working with his employees and understood that working in the factory wasn't always the best. So what he did is he made a thing that doubled pay for his factory workers, and instead of working 9 hours, they worked 8 hours. Um, 1917, Ford produced the first ever model truck. It's their first truck. It was based off of the Model T, but it had a chassis. It had an improved chassis to carry stuff around in, and had a rear axle this time. 1928, the Model A. Uh, Great sales. It was a nice looking car, but it was just released at a bad time. It was released in the Great Depression, but even so, still had over 5 million models sold. And there was also good competition going on during then. Uh, Ford made Jeeps for the Army. They also made boats and planes for World War II. So a lot of the popularized green Jeeps, like with the stars on the front, the Army's used, that was mainly Ford. 1982, the F Series trucks, which was widely known truck nowadays, especially the F-150s. Uh, Most popular selling vehicle in the U.S. 1964, the Mustang becomes super popular. Ford makes the Mustang, which is the first kind of muscle car, and everyone loves it. It becomes super popular in those days, in the 60s. 1970, the first adjustable seatbelt, because it wasn't just a waist belt now, it was finally over the shoulder, it was adjustable too. 1985, the Taurus release, the Taurus releases, and it broke traditional style by being aerodynamic. It was the start of a worldwide trend. That's why it was Ford's most popular vehicle, because no car has ever been aerodynamic like this, and it was the beginning of everyone else starting to do it. 1990, Ford Explorer started to rise in popularity because SUVs were becoming super popular now. Then it was down. It had to be one of Ford's most popular, most successful vehicles. The the T1, the Taurus, and the Explorer, and the F-150 are all still nowadays except the Model T. So, speaking of Ford today, what does Ford look like today? What is Ford doing? Well, Ford is still alive and kicking, and they aren't doing as well as other competitors, but they they're falling behind in profits. They thought profits were going to be higher than they are. They aren't struggling, but they had higher profits, or they had higher planned profits. Um, COVID. COVID is very bad for these companies right now, especially the fact that Ford was having Canada, U.S., and Mexico. Their representatives announced that they're shutting down, that they're not going to resume because and because of the COVID, the virus spread. Ford also said that they're going to discontinue passenger seat cars besides the Mustang, which is pretty big, but you can't. Yeah, it makes sense. The Mustang was like their mainly only popular their popular two-seater car. Uh, so I've talked about the history of Ford Motors, their accomplishments and achievements, and where they are today. And Ford was most likely and always will be the one of the big superpowers in the vehicle industry. They've been doing it since the 1896, and they will keep doing it, and they're still going to remain the most powerful. Just because their profits have been down a little bit and COVID's not helping, I don't think it's going to kill them or ruin them. I think it'll just hurt them for a little bit, but Ford has come a huge way from the 1900s, and I guarantee it's even likely to grow. And then before I know the new rules to show the note card, it's reversed, and my handwriting is absolutely terrible. But there we go.